Hello and welcome to the channel, where today we are really hyped on the channel, aren't we, Alfred? The SM Battle Reports No Retreat Legends Tournament is this weekend, and a load of people from across the world have brought lists to Gibraltar, and they're going to battle it out, and we're going to get a champion of just Warhammer Internet. Okay, so we're quite excited because we're fans of all of these people. Okay, so to have the fact that they're all going to have a big battle is quite interesting. All right, there's going to be a champion. They've brought some teeth, to say the least, and yeah, we're very interested to see who's going to win. So we thought after the LGT, where we did this for the Invitational, we would do a similar thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the list and we're going to talk about the key things in each army. We're going to talk about the things we really like. We're going to give some predictions as to who we think might take it, and of course, we're going to get some jabs in our friend Quipster because he's also going. So that's also very, very exciting for us. However, before I can begin, we're going to rip a band-aid off because it's a painful band-aid. You'll have noticed at this point in the video that Alfred hasn't really said anything, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, isn't there, Alfred?
Here's the thing, right? You got 22 players here. Not one of them picked a Chaos faction. Not one. Not a single demon. Not a Nurgling in there. Nothing. Shaggy, I've seen you play Chaos before. What's going on? What's going on with this? Okay? I don't like it.
There's not a single Chaos keyword in this entire tournament. And we don't blame the players. Of course, you don't hate the player, you hate the game, as they say. And poor old Chaos. It's so sad.
I mean, I could make the, there's a couple of Dark Angels.
You said you weren't going to do this. You said you weren't going to do this right before we started recording. Okay, so yeah, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the round one pairings, pairing by pairing, and we're going to talk about what people are taking, what we really like, and who we think is going to take it, and who we think at the end is going to take the whole thing. Okay, because there are some seriously good players going to this as well. That's the other reason this is very exciting. I haven't actually said.
And Quipster will be there.
And also Quipster. And we haven't said, but this entire thing is going to be streamed on SM Battle Reports. The link will be in the description. And as I say, this whole thing is raising money for charity. And this community has been amazing, raising a lot of money for charity recently. So hoping that we can keep that train going. So the first pairing of round one is Antonio from Deep Games versus Chapter Master Valrak, who you may have heard of if you're a fan of Primarchs, for example. Now, this is an interesting matchup for one reason in my head at least, which is that when I had a look online for the win percentage in this matchup, there is no record of this battle having ever taken place in the last 3 months. Since the start of June is when the win percentages are taken from. So let's start off then with Antonio's list.
So this list essentially is a Guilliman Castle. He's got big man Bobby G with a lot of good, just generic good Space Marine stuff. Some Redemptors, a Relic Contemptor with a Twin Volkite, Eradicators, just good stuff with all the rerolls. Can't go wrong.
And what does, if people aren't familiar, what does Guilliman do?
Well, in combat he's a bit of a beatstick, which helps.
It's quite good.
And in addition, he gives full rerolls to hit and rerolls of 1 to wound. Now, it used to be all rerolls to wound, which was crazy, but they've made it a bit more balanced now.
Yeah. So he does that. He also gets back up after he dies, which is quite exciting if he makes the roll, which is always an important part of the game. But yeah, he's a pretty good buffing character, and he's something that you have to constantly think about when you're fighting against this faction. And of course, he's helping out core units, as all the Chapter Masters and Lieutenants, etc. do. So those Redemptors are going to be getting a lot of rerolls. That Contemptor is going to be popping off if it gets those full rerolls. We even have Aggressors in there. We don't see a lot of Aggressors nowadays, so it's nice to have them back. Welcome, guys. It's very exciting.
So in case you're not familiar, if you're a Sisters player, you might think of Guilliman as just a worse Morven Val. That's a pretty good way to think about him.
Yeah.
A Primarch, but still worse than a Lady in a Suit.
This is true. This is true. And yeah, he does have company veterans, so this is an interesting one. So they have that bodyguard rule. We're going to see this a few times today, where they have that rule where if they're by a character, that character can't be shot. This also keeps Tigirius safe, who's also got on the list. Tigirius is actually really good at casting powers, so always very reliable. And there's a couple of other meta choices that we can see. So Eradicators, attack bikes, good, very good for anti-tank. And that single attack bike, I assume, is for getting engage, etc., which is always nice.
And then we've got Chapter Master Valrak. He famously, people have been saying, is undefeated on bat reps.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
He was brought down. Someone slayed the Titan. Down? Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, and he claims to be Imperial Fists, but I've seen a number of leaks that Mr. Valrak puts out. I know an Alpha Legion player when I see one. He gets that info through clandestine means, leaks it out to the world. He's chaos.
So interestingly, Valrak does have a lot of meta choices in this army. A lot of the classic Space Marine units that you'd like to see. So Triple Redemptor, we've all seen a lot of them in 9th edition. They're very, very good. Eradicators, we know what they do. And he's even got a lot of intercessors. So a lot of troops, he can combat squad them. He's got 6 5-man intercessor bobs, really help him play the mission. I think he's been very smart about his list. Okay, Imperial Fists, it's a really tough army to build around. I think he's kind of done what most Imperial Fist players do nowadays, which is for the most part just ignore your doctrine. It's barely going to help you, and take lots of things with bolters, and that should hopefully do the job. He's even got Tech Marines in there. Tech Marines there can help him out with the Dreadnoughts, healing them, making them better at hitting. He's even got that peak efficiency from the Imperial Fist supplement. Of course, he has got the Eye of Hypnoth, which will give him reroll ones to wound as well as to hit on that Primaris Captain. Absolute peak efficiency. We love that on this channel. So who do you think is going to take this one then, Alfred? If you had to put your money on it, the Imperial Fists or the Ultramarines?
I would put my money on the Ultramarines. The Fists have a good list, but Ultramarines, they've got a lot of shenanigans. They can do some redeploys. They've got a Primarch. What about yourself?
I think Ultramarines is a very, very sensible guess. I think the reason we don't have this data, as I say, is because there's just not a lot of Imperial Fist players. However, I do think they've got some tricks. And of course, I think Valrak knows them very, very well. But if I had to, unfortunately, for the boys in yellow, I do have to say the boys in blue, who I also love. And I hope Gilliman wins. He's a very, very cool character. So there we go. So, on to the second pairing that we've got here today, which is PleasantKenobi versus Phil Lewis from Rapid Fire Wargaming. So, this is an interesting matchup. We've got Sisters versus the new Tyranids. Okay, so when I say new Tyranids, I mean we've got the High Fleet Leviathan, and we've also got these new Synaptic Links. It's very, very exciting. There's actually, at this point, been like a handful of tournaments with these rules actually active. So this is actually one of the first tournaments with people seeing them. So Phil's got a lot of pressure on him here to deliver.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about how strong these new Tyranids are. I'll be really interested to see how they can compare with some of the other pretty strong lists at this place.
Okay, so up first we've got High Fleet Leviathan, and we've got some pretty exciting things. So we have the Hive Tyrant with a lot of the buffs that people were hoping to see on him. So we've got the -1 to wound, very good, something as tough as him. We've got the Chapter Master basically ability on him, and we've got the redeploy on him as well. So he's got 2 Warlord traits, very, very exciting. And then we have the Tyranid Warriors as well, and these have the Synaptic Link that I think we were all hoping to see. This helps your things hit just that little bit better and can really, really help in the long run. And then the Zone Throbes also have a Synaptic Link upgrade, so they have Psychic Channeling. This makes them a little bit better when casting powers, or they can help out another unit cast their powers that little bit more easily. So we've got some pretty big players in this list from the Tyranid book. They were already pretty good, right? We all know how good Hiveguard are, and they're going to be that bit better. They're going to be that bit better in this book. Likewise, the Exocrine, we know he's amazing, or she's amazing, and it's going to be an absolute powerhouse with these upgrades if they needed to be. And the Demic Herons, we've seen them for a long time. He's even gone for the strength bonus on D McCarran. I don't know what D McCarran's hit and don't kill, but yeah, in case that happens, he's accounted for it. So yeah, very, very exciting. And then we've got PleasantKenobi's list, and we actually met PleasantKenobi at the LGT. Very, very nice guy. Go check out his channel, and go check out everyone's channel. Actually, we should probably
including ours.
Say everybody here. Everybody is here is very nice. I'm sure. In fact, stop watching this video. Just go watch this. Much better. Anyway, so yeah, so he's actually got kind of I think a twist on the kind of classic competitive sisters list that you see a lot of nowadays. He's actually got a battalion, so he hasn't gone for Bloody Rose and Emma Chalice or Bloody Rose and Argent Shroud. He's actually gone for just Argent Shroud. Argent Shroud is the one that allows you to advance and shoot, which is pretty interesting. So he's also got a Vindicare in the list. This is the thing about this tournament. There are some decisions that people have made because they're fun, and there's some decisions that they've made because they're much better players than I am. And I don't understand why they've done this. He's got Morven File because
yeah,
everybody takes Morven File. Morven File, as we've already said, is just Gilliman squared, really. And then yeah, a lot of the classics. So we've got Repentia, we've got Retributors with multi-melters. You know them, you know him, and then interestingly, he's got a lot of prayers in this list. So he's got the missionary and he's got the dogmata with the upgrade. So he's going to be shouting all sorts of things all across the weekend, and yeah, it's going to be very loud and very effective, I imagine.
It's a lot of multi-melters. Even in his Battle Sister squads, multi-melters. They'll be riding around in rhinos, presumably. Well, the Retributors will be. Multi-melters, all of it. Argent Shroud, Run Along, multi-melter.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, this is another list where we see the bodyguard rule coming in. If you haven't played this is a very, very common tactic. People will use the Celestian Sacrosands, hide them behind a building. They're actually just quite tough because they've got that 2-up save with the shield, and that means things like Morven File then cannot be shot. And it's really effective over the course of the game. Yeah, we've also got the Stormbolt Dominion squad in this list, which again we see a lot of the time. That stratagem to get all of those mortal wounds is just really powerful. So yeah, I think that's pretty much an auto take at this point in most lists. So who are you going to go with then, Alfred? Who do you think has got this?
It's a weird one because the Tyranids is quite new to the scene with these new rules. So even though we've got the win percentage, but that win percentage is going to be quite different after these new rules have come out.
100%,
but at the same time, I still would give it to the sisters in this case. They are the more well-known, and also they've just got so many ways to prevent some of the key psychic powers going off for the Tyranids, and that could be what swings it. Yeah.
True. Yeah. Quite a psychic-heavy army.
What about yourself? What do you reckon?
It is a tough one. It is a really tough one because, like I said, we haven't properly seen how good the Tyranids can be. Right, we know how great that shooting is. We know that the Execrete doesn't have many ideal targets outside of the transports, really. But the Hive Guards are going to do some serious work. They're going to pick up those bodyguard units pretty quickly if they want them to. What Sisters do really well at is the mission. Like a lot of the top armies that we're going to see today, the main thing you'll notice when you look at these army lists is just how dense they are. They just get so much for their points, and the Tyranids, you can just see it just on the list. They just don't get nearly enough. I know they've got monsters, of course, but even in terms of like looking at the number of units they've got, it's just Sisters are just amazing at playing that mission, and then you end the game and you're 20 points behind. For that, I do have to give it for the Sisters. But everybody knows the Genius of the Cults are one of my true loves of the hobby, so I'm hoping the gods win. But it'll be an interesting game. Up next, all of these matchups are going to be very beautiful, but this is going to be a very pretty game. We've got Brian Pullen's Admech versus James Otero from Siege Studios. James, the legend that he is, has brought the Katachan Jungle Fighters. He has brought an army of Rambo versus the Admech. And Brian has got Admech, and it's a Skitarii force. He's actually gone the Skitarii veteran cohort. So let's just take a look at this list.
So Brian Pullen, you'll know him from Tabletop Titans. He's one of the founding members of the channel, and he has brought the Skitarii veteran cohort. And what that does is that makes all his Skitarii that much tougher. It gives them a 5-up invuln, gives them light cover if they don't move, and they'll get extra attacks, makes them a bit tasty in combat. In addition, just like being an Admech player, all his characters have a lot of spicy different things they can add to their generic Skitarii. He can give reroll hits and wounds of 1. He can choose units to fall back and still shoot. If units in cover, he can give them +1 to their save. He can choose a unit and they can ignore AP -1 and -2, which in addition to that light cover means that it is going to be tough to shift some of these 20-man Ranger blobs or 20-man Vanguard blobs. But looking through the list, there are a lot of bodies on here. You got a load of Vanguard, a load of Rangers, and then as well as that, he's gone in with the Infiltrators and the Rust Stalkers, which can be a bit of a melee threat, and those Infiltrators can start mid-board as well.
I think the thing about this list that is really interesting, and if you haven't played AdMech in 9th edition, one of the things that might take you by surprise is actually just how good they are in combat, right? So I think at the start you might go, oh, this is a shooting matchup, right? We've got Guard versus AdMech, and the AdMech shooting is really good, but they're also incredible in combat. Not that the Catachans aren't, but let's be real. 9th edition, so the Skitarii Vanguards, they could be rocking 3 attacks each. And they can be -1 strength and toughness and nearby units. So it's a really powerful unit in this faction. And yeah, he's got a lot of them, actually. Quite a lot of them.
Quite a lot.
And we've got lots of Rust Stalkers and Infiltrators. Again, amazing for playing that mission. Amazing trading units.
Yeah, and then those the Cerberus Raiders are one of the best screens in the game as well. So can't forget those, just because as soon as you try and charge them, they use a strat and they'll run away.
Very true. Cowards, this Cerberus. And then we have James's list, and boy, is it cool! Let's be. There's a lot of really cool and fluffy armies here, but this warms my heart. This is very cool to see.
Being Siege Studios, we know this is going to be a beautiful army.
You'd hope.
You would hope.
Yeah. Now, you can actually check out his Instagram. We'll try and put as many links as possible in the description. But yeah, you can check out his Instagram where there's all of these models. They are absolutely stunning. Of course, we've got Slimarbo, we've got Strachan. It's really, really cool. They're actually pretty good models. Slimarbo useful for playing the mission. Colonel Strachan, actually pretty good in combat with his big steel arm. So yeah, really interesting. This entire army, it is happy, I think, to Barney a bit in combat. With the Vanguards, they get that extra strength, and the Catachan abilities that also get to rerolls on those big weapons for the Guard tank. So those Manticores, he's only got the one with full payload, but they're still all going to be really good with those rerolls, which is really cool. He's even got the Valkyries. I think it's funny. We're at a place now where I think a lot of us are sick of seeing flyers in 9th edition, but at the same time, seeing these is just awesome to see. So fantastic.
Well, he's got 2 Vulture gunships as well, so a lot of flyers here. 4 flyers.
Really cool. And of course, a healthy amount of guardsmen to go along with it. He's got the veterans, but still a solid unit. Even in 9th edition, that plasma is really useful.
I think if we're going to call it, though, I don't rate James's chances, if I'm honest.
I'm trying to think of a reason why you're wrong. There are very few things that the Astra Militarum have access to that the AdMech just can't do
better. Yeah, it's a dice game. Brian could just roll ones.
He's got Manticores, he's got flyers. I think a first turn from him could be pretty good. It could be genuinely pretty good. So, maybe that'll be the playing field. I can't not root for the Catachan in this matchup. I'm pretty certain Brian is going to root for the Catachan in this matchup because you just don't see them at all nowadays, and that's such a cool range. So up next, we have got another selection of people from Bat Rep. So we've got the Spider from Tabletop Tactics, and we've got Julien from French Wargame Studio. Of course, we have people from all over the world going to this tournament. It's very, very exciting. So we've got Sisters versus Drukhari, 2 armies that I think, on the surface, are both really, really, popular and successful armies at the moment in the game. So, Julian's list, actually not terribly dissimilar to PleasantKenobi's list that we saw before. The main difference, of course, being that Julien here has brought a piano. So, the Exorcist has made it into the list. It's very, very exciting. It's a shame we don't see it as much nowadays in the meta, because we used to see too many of them. but
it's a beautiful
they
model.
are very, very cool. It's absolutely stunning model. We have got Morven Val again. And this time we do have Celestine. Both of them are here. They're just both incredible units. Celestine can help out with the invuns of the units nearby. Interestingly, he's gone for the Death Cult Assassins, whereas PK went for the Crusaders, which we saw earlier. 2 units that are just amazing for actions. So if you see units like this in the army, you're not sure what they do when you look at a list. Small units like this, especially infantry, are amazing for playing the mission, right? Because you're happy to lose them. You're happy to just throw them away to get engaged, to do an action, do a rod. They're just really, really useful. They also affect your opponent in an annoying way, because your opponent now needs to designate an annoying amount of firepower to kill just 2 13-point models. Outside of that, again, we've got some very popular choices. We've got a lot of Zephyrim in this list though, which is really cool. These are the sisters with jump packs and power swords, and they're actually pretty good. They get bonuses to their charge from the flag, basically, which is the pennant, and they can get rerolls to wound, which is just always really useful. I think a single squad of those wipes out a 10-man squad of intercessors with ease.
So interestingly, he's taken that Outrider with all those Zephyrim as Argent Shroud, and he'd get a lot of benefit from taking it as Bloody Rose. I wonder if it's actually a sort of a fluff reason. If everything's painted as Argent Shroud, maybe he just wants to keep it consistent, which is fine.
No, you could 100% be right. Of course, this tournament is not just about winning. This is about the occasion. It's about raising money for charity. So people are going to be wanting to bring their really most beautiful armies, their most fluffy armies. So I definitely think that could be a reason. So then let's talk about the Spider. All right, he's not only commanding the army, but of course the Spider is bringing the Spider, who is his Archon, if you're familiar with tabletop tactics. So this is his special converted Archon. He's, of course, made him the Warlord. He's got the Gym Blade, which is a very, very powerful sword. It's damage 3. It can hurt you, but it's a very, very good sword to have on an Archon. He's got Drazar, and he's actually sacrificed the Warlord trait on Drazar to give it to the Archon, which is pretty cool, because Drazar gets a lot better when he has Hatred Eternal, his Warlord trait. So pretty cool to see. And he's actually gone, most notably, entirely for Cabal of the Black Heart. Now this is interesting because in my experience, by quite some way, witches are the most popular troop choice of the Drukhari, and they just do so much for their points. They're incredibly cheap, and to not have them is a big combat punch that he's lost. He has got the Incubi. We all know how great they are. They have that fight last ability. But yes, certainly he's got a predominantly shooting army here, right? So all of those Cabalite squads, they've all got blasters in them. We've got 3 Ravagers as well as the standard 6 Raiders. So he has got a massive amount of shooting in this army. SM Battle reports there's going to be a really healthy amount of terrain. So it's going to be interesting to see how strong his Alpha Strike is. And obviously he's got a lot of stuff with Fly here, so it's going to be really good. And he's even got like 3 units of Scourges there. They're just going to be great for playing the mission. Not terrible anti-infantry firepower, but still really, really good. But yeah, it's quite interesting to see. We haven't gone for the triple patrol. It's by far and away the most popular choice.
And as you mentioned, having the 1 blaster in each of his squads, as Blackheart, he gets 1 reroll to hit when he's shooting, so he can save it for that 1 special weapon, which gives some good consistency there. So, interestingly, in this matchup, these are 2 very popular armies, right? We have over 100 games in the last few months, right, since June. So the win rate for this is a 34% win rate for the Sisters. Now this we thought we would talk about because it's notable, right? These are 2 very good armies, both performing very well. And so why is there such a problem when they play against Drukhari? Well, having looked at the lists and having played against both these factions quite a bit, then what I can tell you is that I think that Drukhari are basically just better at how Sisters play than Sisters. And I think that if you play against Drukhari as a Sisters player, how you would normally play, you're going to lose. So the way Sisters players win is they are incredibly good at that trading game. There are a bunch of secondaries they do really well. And Drukhari are just even better than them. They're going to have more resources than them. They're going to be better in combat. You can't just charge your Sisters combat units into Incubi because they might get wiped. So it completely changes the game. And Sisters don't have that counter to Drukhari, right? Sisters have got all those points at things like denying psychic powers. So actually they don't get a massive amount of efficiency versus the Drukhari. And that's why that win rate is actually pretty bad, really, for 2 9th edition armies that are
you'd think should be quite balanced. And then ultimately, of the two, Drukhari does have the overall better win percentage. And I think a lot of that might not actually apply to this game, because we talked before about how Lawrence doesn't have the witches. He hasn't got a lot of the traditional, Drukhari units.
It's quite an unusual Drukhari list in a way.
Yeah, this is going to be a different kind of game. And actually all of those multi-melters are going to do a lot of work in this game. So it is much easier to screen out a unit of Retributors, even as Argent Shroud, than it is to screen out, flying tanks of the Drukhari. So it's little things like this that Lawrence can use to his advantage and get the win here, I think. We are going to have to side with the statistics on this, but yeah, I think it will be a really interesting game. Of course, we all know how good Lawrence is as a player.
Yes, my French isn't quite good enough to follow the French Wargame Studio, but perhaps I'll brush up on that GCSE I got and see if I can understand a bat rap.
On then to, we have another YouTube class. We have Stephen Box versus Bridgar from Tabletop Titans. Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics, I should have said. He's synonymous with Vanguard Tactics, so I didn't think it needed said. But Stephen Box has got sisters. He's actually got his traditional sisters list, which we've seen him take quite a lot, which is Order of Unmartyred Lady. Now, this is really cool because, as we've said before, you generally see Bloody Rose and Ebon Chalice or Ardent Shroud, and a lot of people have dismissed Order of Unmartyred Lady, certainly before they got their extra rules. They were certainly one of the least favoured orders, and he's actually looked at this faction and he's gone like, how can I do something a bit different? And he's taken Order of Unmartyred Lady, which is pretty exciting. And then Bridgar, of course, has taken his beloved Custodes. So Order of Unmartyred Lady, what do? They basically get better as they die, which is quite exciting. They become martyrs, so if one of the models in the unit dies, they get +1 to hit. Very, very exciting. So Stephen Box has got a super upgraded Canoness here. So he's got a Relic Sword where he can take wounds on the Canoness. He then gets extra attacks from one of his Warlord traits for those wounds that he takes. He can then do mortal wounds on 6s to wound with that Relic Blade. He then can reroll hits and wounds with his other Warlord trait, and he cannot have hits and wounds rerolled against this Canoness when she's in combat. So she is incredibly killy and actually quite tough to bring down, and those mortal wounds can wipe out, most things in the game, let's be honest. Outside of that, we've also got a special character, Junith Eruita. She's kind of a chapter master, actually, and she's got a pulpit. So, she can help people nearby to ignore cover. Really useful. Outside of that, we've got, generally speaking, the usual suspects for the sisters that we've seen in the other lists, but they do have some really interesting strats.
So there are some interesting strats that the Order of Martyred Lady get. The best one is if Stephen Box faces Adrian Phillips, he can re-roll hits against orcs. Pretty good. But there are some real better ones. Giving a unit objective secured, always useful.
Yeah, amazing.
In your opponent's shooting phase, he can choose an Order of Martyred Lady unit, and they can shoot. And shooting in your opponent's shooting phase is so strong.
Yeah, those strats are going to really come in useful against Bridgar's list here. So he has got one or two dreadnoughts, right?
Just a couple. So he's got a similar list to what you see with a lot of Custodes these days. Shadow Keepers for that access to that stratagem for -1 to the strength of the weapon that's shooting them. But the really interesting things in his list is he has 3 Contemptor Glatus Dreadnoughts, and he has a Telamon, but not the shooty kind, the punchy kind. He's got double fist on that Telamon. And the thing that sort of brings it together is that on Trajan Valorous, it's got Champion of the Imperium, which means that units within 12, including Dreadnoughts, can heroically intervene.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool list. He's had some really great success with the Custodes, especially in the Tabletop Titans tournament, if you watch that one. So yeah, he knows how to play this list really well. We've got some really interesting units here. So the Sagittarum are Custodians. They don't have the 3-up invuln that these sword and board guys get, but they do have access to like heavy bolter type shots, so they're pretty effective. And he's even got the Sisters of Silence in this list. It's great to see those, and they're actually pretty good in a Custodes army because they're just cheaper, and so they can allow you to do actions. You can throw them away a bit more easily, and they can actually help out against Psychics, of course, because generally speaking, Custodes hate going up against psychic heavy armies. We've got the Venatari. We know why they're so amazing at this point. They can shoot twice. They're just very good for their points. Really, really useful. I like that he's upgraded all of the Galatas Dreadnoughts as well. It's very, very cool.
I mean, why not?
So who do you think is going to take this one then, Alfred? Do you reckon the Custodians or the Sisters have got it? That win percentage for this one is much more even.
Much more even.
So where are you going to go?
I think I will go with Mr. Stephen Box on this one. I mean, they've both got a lot of experience playing their armies, but that Canoness with all those mortal wounds might be able to slap some Custodians pretty well. And actually, Sisters have got a few ways of doing mortal wounds. They've got a few strats that can do the same. And mortal wounds in general is something that Custodians do not like.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of efficiency for the Sisters in this specific matchup because, like, all of those, D3 damage weapons that the Custodians have, they're against 1 wound models. Sisters, like all of the 9th edition codexes, have a healthy amount of mortal wounds, even just outside of that. And of course, he's got those multi-melters, so on all those Retributive squads, so they're going to do some serious work. So yeah, I'm going to have to give it to him. But honestly, I think this will be very close. I think this will be one of the closest matchups we're going to see today in the first round because I watched that Table of Titans tournament and Bridgar knows his Custodians.
He does know his Custodians
really well. So up next, we have a Hellstorm battle.
Civil War.
That is true. So Tom has got the Blood Angels and Elliot is taking the Knights. So you don't see a lot of Blood Angels or Knights nowadays, being honest. So let's just take a look at these armies. So in Tom's list, of course, we've got the usual suspects for the Blood Angels, if you are familiar with them. Primarily, a lot of things with jump packs, which is of course what you expect to see as Blood Angels. We've got the Sanguinary Priest, so he can keep putting things into that Assault Doctrine and sending them up the board. He's actually got the Teeth of Terror on the Sanguinary Priest, which is always quite cool because it makes him just a bit of a beat stick, which is what you want if you're spending that many points on a character. Really, he's got a Primaris Chaplain on bike. We all know how great they are, incredibly good in combat, really useful buffs to give to units nearby. And then of course he's got a healthy amount of intercessors to go along with it, which is pretty cool.
And then all the Sanguinary Guard and Vanguard vets, just loads of them.
Yeah, he's got Vanguard vets for anti-chav, and then he's got Sanguinary Guard for anti-life. They are still very, very good. And he also has got Rights of War on that Sanguinary Ancient just to give that obsec to those important units. He wants them to do some serious work, and he'll be throwing those Death Company up first turn if he needs to. So then we have House Crest for the Knights. So what do House Crest do, Alfred?
When they charge, they can reroll their hits in combat. All Knights are pretty good in combat just because they can stomp with their stompy feet, so it's always good to have.
Now what's interesting about this list is that he's actually gone for a lot of big Knights, which is awesome to see because generally speaking, I think Knight players feel forced into taking just loads and loads of Armigers, which is obviously not what you want to do as a Knights player. You want to take the big boys out, which is exactly what he's done, which is pretty cool. So any favourites for you amongst the Knights?
So yeah, he's taking the big Knights does mean that you get to put all the little buffs on them, 2-up save. For weapons with a random number of attacks, he can roll additional dice and discard one, which adds a lot of consistency.
And actually, even in 9th edition, there's not a lot of data for the Knights, but they have had some pretty successful win percentages in some factions because, well, quite frankly, they're just quite tough to deal with for a lot of armies. So actually, in this matchup, they are set to do quite well. Again, this is not a lot of data, but yeah, interestingly, they do really well versus the Blood Angels. And, maybe there is some logic in it. They are going to have that strong shooting against the Blood Angels, which is always really good, and are, of course, pretty good at killing them in combat.
The thing that Knights will and do struggle with is just playing the mission. With only a small number of models, it's hard to hold objectives. You have to kill to the man the things that you're up against in order to do it. And that's, I think, where he's really going to struggle here. Just the mission.
So you're going to give it to the Blood Angels?
See, if I was the Blood Angels player, and it's not the fun thing to do, but the thing to do is to hide and play the mission. You don't have to fight. If if they can't see you and you're on objectives, you're going to outscore them.
Well, I guess what is interesting is I'm sure they'll have practiced a bunch together in preparation for this tournament and just generally on Hellstorm, so they'll know exactly how each other is going to play. But I want the Knights to win this one. I feel like they can do it. They're going to have a really strong round of shooting before things hit combat. So maybe they'll pop off and kill a bunch of Sanguinary Guard.
And you know what? And even in combat, I mean, it is tough to take down a Knight. It's worth noting that Knights don't get their invuln in combat in general. So those Blood Angels with their +1 to wound as well, smashing into Knights, they can do work. But Knights can smash them back too, so...
So up next, we have Winter's SEO versus Angel from Deep Games. Now, this is a really interesting matchup again. So we've got two armies that I think a lot of people are afraid of nowadays. So we've got the Dark Angels, and Winters shocked the world when he released his video, and he's got a whole new army here, a whole new Dark Angel successor army he's taking to this tournament for the first time, and he's against a Drukhari army, and this is quite the Drukhari army, shall we say. In fact, it is the Drukhari army. So when I say it is the Drukhari army, that is because we've got all of it. We've got Dark Technomancers, we've got Cabal of the Black Heart, and we've got Cult of Strife on a triple patrol. It's really quite good. So all of this gels together really well, and as you can see, he's just got so many assets in this army. So he's got those racks to hold that backfield objective, he's got the Kronos, they will be getting the Dark Technomancer bonus, really good. He's got that Cabal of the Black Heart detachment, which means all of the raiders and all of his raiders are able to be Cabal of the Black Heart, are going to get those rerolls exactly as Lawrence gets, but he doesn't have the sacrifice of not getting the witches because he also has that patrol of Cult of Strife, which you normally can't take if you take like a Real Space Raider, for example. So it's just really good, and those witches are so incredibly efficient for their points. He's got the Succubus, which has scared everybody for a very long time now. He has got Drazar being the Warlord, so he'll be getting the reroll hits and wounds on Drazar. It's really quite incredible. All of this just works together really well, and there's just so much to play the mission with, so much to trade with. He's got good shooting, good combat. It's an incredible army. There's a reason it has such a high win percentage.
Yeah.
And then we have Winters' list, which I think is a fascinating one. So he's gone for the single Vanguard. So the Dark Angels have this rule that if you take an entire Deathwing Vanguard, you don't pay the CP like you wouldn't for a patrol or whatever if you have your Warlord in it. And he's got a single Interrogator Chaplain leading that. The Interrogator Chaplain is like the Chaplain, but it has transhuman physiology and like an extra attack and a couple of the little buffs. But yeah, pretty interesting. He's also given it the Teeth of Terror, because you can give the Teeth of Terror to Interrogator Chaplains, not to normal Chaplains. Then you can use the Mantra of Strength, listening on that character, and he can be an absolute weapon. He can be dealing like 10 attacks at damage 3 if he gets that listening off. It's really quite exciting.
This is the first company, isn't it? It's just all Deathwing, Blade Guard, like everything is going to have transhuman. The thing is, he's got not a lot of ways to move across the board. I mean, he can deep strike some of these Deathwing, but once they're down, they're down. And against an army as fast as Drukhari, they might struggle.
Yeah, I think Dark Angels lack a bit of flexibility at the best of times. I think a lot of people were really surprised they didn't hit the meta as hard as they did. They were a bit outshone by following Codexes, but quite frankly, just as amazing as Transhuman is, and it is obviously an incredible ability, but it just doesn't mean you win the game. It really doesn't. Movement helps you win the game. Trading effectively helps you win the game. Being able to definitely hold your backfield objectives gets you some points. It doesn't necessarily win you the game, and that's the difficulty the Deathwing players often face. So he's going to have that slow march, I'm sure, to the middle with a couple of units. But it's going to be really interesting to see how he manages this matchup with such an elite army. And so the Drukhari do have the advantage in this matchup statistically. But of the two armies, Alfred, who are you going to give it to?
I mean, I will give it to the Drukhari, but Winters has the cooler army. It's going to look iconic. All these Terminators with all the different weapon loadouts they've got. It's going to look cool. I don't know how well it's going to do.
It is a really, really cool army, and I want Dark Angels to win so much, but the Dark Angels generally, I think, suffer reacting quickly to fast armies like this, and so going full Deathwing is not great for this matchup. Winters is going to have some really strong matchups as well in this tournament, but I think this is going to be one of the harder ones for him, so I do unfortunately have to give it to the Drukhari. So up next, we've got a lot of Dakar in this fight. So we've got Adrian from Tabletop Titans bringing his Orcs versus Oliver from Broadsword Wargaming with his Knights. Now this is a really interesting matchup because I think actually this is far more even than you might suspect when you first look at it, because of course the win percentages overall might tell you one thing. Knights are not doing the best in the meta right now, as you said earlier. They struggle to play that mission, but actually versus a Bucky heavy list, which is what Adrian has got, they actually have a bit more play. So let's take a look at Adrian's list first. So there are a lot of buggies here.
There's a
right?
lot. Adrian's gone with the freebooters, the pirates, meaning that if he kills a unit, which might be a bit trickier versus knights, then his whole army will get +1 to hit. So actually that might be key in this, because usually freebooters, they'll go for a really small unit, try and kill that first, and then the whole army gets +1 to hit. Here, the best he can do is kill an armiger and then get +1 to hit, which is much less easy to do. But still,
True.
He's got a lot of buggies. The Rocketruck Squid buggies for the out of line of sight shooting. He's got the Mechatrack Scrapjets. They've got the flat 3 damage missiles, which is pretty strong. And then in addition, he's got some support with some flyers, the Dagger Jets, and he's got the flyer that gives those Dagger Jets a 5-up invuln, which makes them slightly more resilient to a first turn sort of alpha strike. And, to back him up, he's got some stuff to do the objectives too. Some commandos, some storm boys. He hasn't gone all in on the buggies like some people do. He's got some things to play the mission there as well.
No, absolutely. It's actually that worries me a little bit more for Oliver here, because I think that, as I say, he's probably not too terrified of all those buggies. Of course, he doesn't want to go second, but especially if he goes first, he's going to be pretty confident he can destroy a healthy amount of buggies a turn. But all of those small squads of storm boys, of commandos, it's really hard to pick them off as a Knights player and stop your opponent just running away with the points, especially if you've got a big chunk of buggies to deal with as well. So he has got a lot of great stuff. The Knight Magera is kind of the go-to knight nowadays. Just absolutely incredible. So much damage through weaponry. I do think first turn is quite important to Oliver there, but I think it could be quite an interesting game.
First turn and the terrain sets up too. Because Adrian's buggies don't care so much about terrain, but those knights need to have, some firing lanes to work with.
Up next, we have Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming versus Quipster, also from DZTV. I should have said Winters is from DZTV as well, if you're not familiar with them. Again, we're going to just put loads of links in the description, so you can check out all of these armies if you want to have a look at them. So Mikey has brought his Iron Hands, and he's very, very good at the Iron Hands. He went incredibly well at the LGT and very nearly made it into the top 8. And so he is very experienced with this army. I think that it is not an army a lot of people in this tournament will have played against a lot. And I think he has some serious advantage going into this tournament because of it. And so, we know how well this army can be competitively. If you're not familiar, we have some really interesting things that kind of only work as Iron Hands, interestingly, in 9th edition. So we've got Devastators and Drop Pods. So the Devastators normally will suffer the penalty for heavy weapons. They don't as Iron Hands. You can throw them up and they'll get those reroll ones, turn 1, because they get that turn 1 deep strike in the Drop Pod. He can make his Contemptor Dreadnought a character, and this has 2 benefits. Number 1, he can give it a Warlord trait, so he's got Merciless Logic, which means 6s can allow him to make another hit with all of those Volkite shots. Just incredible. And the second benefit he gets from them there is the company veterans, because he can use those as bodyguards again. He can just hide them behind a piece of terrain, and then that Contemptor Dreadnought cannot be shot. Very, very powerful. Outside of that, we've got some really points efficient units in this list. So we've got the Vanguard Vets, we've got the Redemptors, we've got the Invictor Warsuit, which is actually still pretty good as Iron Hands, and then we actually have some really great mission playing stuff as well in this list. So we've got the Eliminator Squad. Those are so fast. They can move and then they can shoot and then they can move again. So they're just very, very good. And then we have things like Incursor Squads, which are just very, very useful. And he's got a lot of mission playing ability with all of these infantry units as well.
And interesting to see the Whirlwind Scorpius in there as well, the Forge World Whirlwind.
Yeah, really useful.
Yeah, I think he will have a lot of advantages going into this, and the biggest advantage is that his round 1 was paired against Quipster.
Quipster, God bless him. So, what I don't understand about Quipster is Quipster was on the verge of greatness with this list. He has taken 9 Alaris Custodians, right? Which is a very, very cool thing you can do. If you're not familiar, one of the things you can do with Alaris Custodians is you can use a stratagem called Unleash the Lions, and you can turn those Alaris Custodians into 9 one-man units. Very, very fun. I don't know how good it is, but it's just really cool. But you see, he split the squad, so you can no longer do this. You can have 5 one-man units, which is not nearly as cool. But
It's not as cool.
Quite cool. Outside of that, Quipster has got a whole bunch of kind of classic stuff. So we know that the Custodian Guard with the Storm Shields are just really, really good. Great for holding objectives with that 3-up invulnerable. We know those Dawn Eagle jet bikes are just amazing. They're incredibly tough to kill. They both have the 3-up invuns. They have like a -1 to hit on one of them. Is a 5-up Feel No Pain on the other. Really, really great units. And the Telemon Dreadnought is just always great firepower to have, especially when getting those rerolls from Trajan. He and Bridgar have both gone for Shadow Keepers. This is probably the most popular choice of Custodians that you get nowadays. Their stratagem is pretty amazing. It's -1 strength when they're being shot at, and they get an anti-character Warlord trait as well. It is an arguably pretty army. Let's be real.
He does paint well, and I do love him dearly.
So who do you think is going to take him? Do you think Quipster can do it? Do you think he can stand up to Mikey and win one for the DZTV game?
See, here's my prediction, right? I think that Quipster will spend so long taking selfies that he'll clock Mikey out and then win on points.
Maybe. Might happen.
No, but I would, in a slightly more serious note, I think Mikey's list has proven itself. It's a very good Iron Hands list. He's done well with it. I would give it to him.
I can see that. I think I've got to give it to Mikey, but of course he's Quipster's our boy. We'll be rooting for him. So the penultimate game of round one is going to be the Glacial Geek Phil versus Liam from DZTV, and Phil has got the Dark Angels as well, and Liam is bringing his Harlequins, which is a very interesting take. I think nowadays you're seeing Harlequins less and less. So I think this is quite an even matchup on paper. I think they both have things going for them. So let's take a look at Phil's list first. So, in the Glacial Geeks list, we can actually see all 3 wings of the Dark Angels. It's very, very exciting. So, we have a Raven Wing Outrider. It does have the bike squads inside of it, so they will be getting the OBSEC, which is really cool. He's got that Lieutenant with the Arbiter's Gaze, a staple in a lot of Dark Angels lists because he always hits on 2s no matter what he's shooting at, even in Overwatch. Just a very, very amazing unit and a screenable strong firepower is always great in the game. Similarly to Mikey's list before, this doesn't have the character blocking except from the command squads, but it's still a really, really good unit just all of the time. He's then got attack bikes, of course. We see them all the time nowadays in Dark Angels lists. They're just very, very good. We've got a healthy amount of Green Wing in this list as well. So we've got some Eradicators, some Interceptors, some Infiltrators, another Talonmaster even in this patrol. So just great units all around and useful for helping him play the mission, I think, as well. When it comes to Terminators, he's actually gone for 2 smaller squads. So he's got 2 Deathwing command squads, just really great for helping him play that mission. And of course, he's got a 1 chunkier squad with OBSEC, so you can use it for Stubborn Defiance, or you can use it as a big hammer, or whatever it is he's going to need it to do, and they're going to be backed up by Azrael. So what about the Harlequins list then, Alfred? You're a big Harlequins fan when you're not dabbling in Chaos, so what's your thoughts on Liam's list here?
Yeah, so he has gone for Soaring Spite. It's a classic. It lets you advance and shoot your pistols as if they're assault weapons. So it gives them a little bit more sort of mobility with those fusion pistols. And to that effect, he's got a lot of fusion pistols in the list. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squads of troops with 3 fusion pistols each. And they'll all be riding around in Starweavers. He's got 2 big units of bikes. A Solitaire, which is always cool to see. He's given him the relic, the Kegarax Rose, which means he'll be re-rolling hits in combat as well as doing flat 3 damage to infantry. Then, of course, he has got some of the classic Harlequin things that you're seeing now. So he's got the Pivotal Roll and the Shadow Seer. There's a lot of tricks here. Troopmaster has got the Twilight Fang, which makes him really killy. Full Quins.
So there is a lot of stuff in this list that does scare me. So the Glacial Geek doesn't have a lot of vehicles though, so that Haywire is not going to have a massive amount of targets, and the fusion pistols are not going to be amazing versus all of that transhuman. So Liam's going to have to be really clever about where he picks his targets. However, the fortunate thing is he will get to choose his targets. He is the much faster army. Even the Ravenwing are just nowhere near as fast as these Harlequins, so he's going to get to choose where he interacts, and it's his game to win, I think, in this matchup. So it's going to be an interesting one. So who are you going to give it to, though?
So I'm a big Harlequins fan, so I'm going to give it to the Quins in this one. I find that Marines tend to fall to the fusion. You just don't shoot them at the Deathwing, just shoot them at the Green Wing, and you'll be fine. And just chew through that in the Raven Wing, and yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to go with the Dark Angels. I think we both can go with our factions here.
Our own factions.
Yeah. Yes. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think that the Dark Angels are just that little bit more efficient. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. And then the final matchup that we have today is Shaggy, who is from SM Battle Reports, versus Jake, who is also from Vanguard Tactics. Now this is another Marine Civil War here. We've got the Ultramarines versus the Black Templars. Again, there's no data on this because Black Templars are very new, so this matchup has not happened yet, according to BCP. So we don't know what the stats are here. However, it's going to be a really interesting game. So let's take a look at the Ultramarines again. So in this Ultramarines list, interestingly, we do have Tigurius again, just a very, very good caster. However, he's forgone Bobby G for Marnius Calgar. Now, this is quite interesting. So Marnius Calgar can give the Chapter Master rerolls. He does have the Lieutenant the rerolls to wound, but interestingly, he also has Seal of Oath. This is a relic where he will pick a target at the start of the game and get full rerolls to hit and wound against that target for the whole game to units nearby. So this is going to be really interesting. He's going to massively buff those dreadnoughts that he's got on his army list.
My one thing I'll say about this is that I am disappointed in Mr. Shaggy for not bringing his word bearers. I've seen them on the channel many times. It's way cooler to play Chaos. We have cake.
Yeah, wrench for Cal has happened here, and now the Ultramarines are reigning supreme. But yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of classic units in this list, so a lot of great stuff for playing the mission, those Eliminators, the Inceptors, but of course we've got the Primaris Apothecary in there as well. We all know at this point how great that could be, especially with the Vox Spiritum, just to get that extra range on the Feel No Pain. So yeah, really, really cool ability. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And it's going into Jake, and Jake has got a very cool Black Templars list, it must be said, because first and foremost, he's got a Land Raider Crusader.
It's classic.
So inside of this Land Raider Crusader is of course 5 Terminators with Thunder Hammers. It's very Black Templars, isn't it? It's very, very Crusadey, shall we say. So yeah, really great to see all this stuff. He's got the new High Marshal Helbrecht model as well. Absolutely beautiful model, so it's going to be really cool to see that on stream. And he's also got the new Crusader squad, so really, really exciting. Can't wait to see how all of this does. He's even got the upgraded Power Fist on one of the Primaris Crusader squads. This is a flat 3 Power Fist with no minus, so it makes that Sergeant really, really quite good. A couple of other really interesting upgrades he's got on the Black Templar units here. So the Blade Guard Veterans, so one of those is going to be able to ignore AP -1 and 2. That adds quite a lot of survivability to the unit that's already pretty tough to kill. And one of the Terminators is going to be -1 damage. So again, if he picks that right, then that adds a lot of survivability to keeping these guys alive.
And it's worth noting that with the Primaris Apothecary there, who's a Chief Apothecary, as soon as that unit dies, or that model dies, sorry, he'll just bring it back. So it doesn't matter if it's just the Sergeant that has -1, damage. Just bring that guy back. It's crazy.
Yeah. And of course, he's upgraded his Primaris Chaplain bike to be an absolute weapon with the Benediction of Fury. So it's going to be really cool to see just how good that is. And he's got the new Black Templars litanies there. And the final Black Templars upgrade that I do just have to mention is the Holy Orb on the Vanguard Veteran Squad, because this is basically the Holy Hand Grenade from Monty Python. If you haven't seen it, it's a once per game ability. You select a unit within 6 and you can deal D3 mortal wounds on a 2-up and make that unit fight last. Very, very cool. Great to see. And the Vanguard Veterans are always just very good. Let's be real. So in this matchup, who do I think is going to win it? I think the Black Templars will take it. I think they're the better army of the two.
I'd have to agree there.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a healthy amount of terrain on this board, and all of those infantry units are going to really love that, and they're going to get into combat quite comfortably with the Ultramarines.
I mean, each one of his squads has its own little upgrade that can just smash its way through the normal Marines that the Ultramarines have.
And that's it. So before we wrap up, Alfred, let's just make a prediction, because it's fun. Which list do you think has the most spice in it?
I think that Angel's list from Deep Games, it's the classic Drukhari list. It's proven itself time and again. He's got Drazar, he's got the Super Succubus, he's got those Chronos, he's got all those little tricks that can be done for Drukhari in one.
If I was taking the GSC out versus all of these armies, I think I think Angel would scare me the most, being honest. Outside of that, I really don't want to say AdMech because it's the obvious one, but like they are just really good. Yeah, so I feel like I do have to give it to the AdMech, but a lot of these are really good. Like there are some really top players in this tournament as well. It's like, obviously a lot of personalities. So it's going to be fascinating to see who wins this one.
For sure. But tune in this weekend.
Yeah.
SN Battle Reports. These are all live streamed, and it's all for charity. It's a great I believe that each person has their own charity that they have chosen to support, but they're all good charities. I can't tell you what all of them are, but I know that our friend Quipster has chosen Shelter, which is a great cause. It's for homelessness.
Do go support. It's going to be such a great vibe, and it's raising a lot of money for charity. So do go check it out. We are so excited, which is the reason we've done this video. So let us know what you think. Who do you think is going to win this? Who are you rooting for? And let us know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll see you for the next one.